So the thing I've been finding recently at talks I've been doing up and down the country is that there seems to be more silence now in my communication. And it's in stark contrast to how it used to be. I was that guy who spoke 10 to the dozen and then some more, trying to cram in as much information as humanly possible in the space of a couple of hours. And yeah, it had the intended effect, I suppose, back in those days. What I found recently is I seem to be going more and more into silence and wanting really just to sit there silently. A lot's said about silence, and there's been books written about this stuff, and all this stuff about silent transmission and what have you. But I find none of it really holds a torch to what silence truly is. It's pretty much like all of this, something that needs to be experienced as opposed to be spoken of or theorized. And even these videos and writings and quotes and meetings and retreats are pointing to this place of silence. And that silence is an experience. It's an experience that's been experienced by somebody, or, it could well also be seen that it's not being experienced by anybody. And it reminds me of a time I was sitting in Glasgow years ago with a very dear friend, and we were talking about silence. And I remember saying, well, there's somebody witnessing the silence. Imagine if there's no one even there to witness the silence, then what is it? What could it possibly be? And it was interesting at the time, the reaction I actually got. And, it was one of those things that was just fleeting. It happened, and then, like, that's it. We'd moved on to the next point of our conversation. And it's, recording this video has reminded me of that, about this whole place of silence, because sometimes that silence can be a place of rest. It can be a place of preparation. It can be a place of understanding deeply what truly is. Because I found that as I'm going more silent in my talks, and in general discussions and conversations with people, there's more ease, and there's more contentment, and there's a more trusting of what truly is. And the beautiful thing is, in sitting in silence or being in silence, we start realizing that there really are no words that are going to ever adequately express or describe or even point to this reality that we already are. However, in silence, when we initially enter into silence, and there's contemplation, as to what's happening. I remember I did a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and what was really interesting was it was a Sunday morning, and we were all just sitting there, and it just naturally became very, very silent. And as I was sitting there, memory came up, and the memory was that I've done this before. When I was growing up, my father would take me to see some of his friends, and these were elderly gentlemen who'd sit in a room. And what I remember as I was sitting there in that retreat was that I'd been doing this before, because these men would just sit there in the room silently, and you'd hear the traffic going by, and you'd smell the person's aftershave, you'd see the cut of the beard, you'd see the ring that they were wearing, and everything was brought into a sharper focus, brought into now, but without any effort or without any trying to. So for me, it was really funny as I'm sitting there silent in this room conducting this retreat, that it brought up this memory, which made me realize that we've always been here. We've always been in this knowing, in this understanding, in this communication. And what can happen is sometimes if an event like an awakening or realization occurs, it allows us to just, in a sense, consciously be able to own it, if that's the right word, or just consciously be able to speak about it. But whether we are consciously aware of this reality or not, we still are. And it was just interesting thinking that, because I was a young kid back then, and, I just wanted to be playing out with the other children, and I'm sitting in this room. And yet I realized that I could only ever have been sitting in that room, and there could only ever really have been that sitting there with these men of true confidence, because I remember the silences, they were so long, but there wasn't an awkward silence. Nobody felt the need to jump in and say something just to break up the silence. And I feel that's something that comes from confidence, and it's something I've found myself as well, becoming quite confident in and being quite content in, and that is to just sit in the silence. We have so much mental chatter in our world. Our phones are constantly sending us notifications. Our relationships around us, the way we live our lives, our employers, there's always this constant emphasis on doing and rushing and being, and there's got to be some sort of payoff for all of this. And yet in that silence, there's really no reward, no intention, no being, no doing, no nothing to grasp at. And that's what we truly are, because there isn't even an understanding of trying to do silence. Because the thing I found is that recently, just a state of natural meditation is just occurring within the group. And it's not something that's planned, or let's sit in a certain position, or let's chant a certain mantra. It's just something that's naturally occurring. And as it occurs, it shows us more and more of what we truly are. I do feel I talk in more depth about this subject, no doubt, in the future. But at this moment in time, that silence is enough. And that's who we truly are. And if we can trust that silence and not make it into anything like, oh, he's talked about sitting in silence, I better go out there and sit in silence, then we start seeing more and more of what we actually are. And it's a very beautiful, delicious place. There's not really any adequate words for it. So yeah, there's been a lot of silence recently, and it's beautiful because it's so expansive, and it shows us more and more of what we are. It allows us to relax at any given moment and retreat from the world, and to, in a sense, make sense of everything around us. Because sometimes what we find is, and we've been so conditioned to rush, that maybe just allowing ourselves to just sit there silently when we really want to, but the demands of the world are telling us that no, it's not right to be sitting there, builds within us a trusting of this reality that we are, and a confidence in this reality as well. And that trusting and that confidence can allow us to let go more and more of what we aren't, in order to realize more and more of what we actually are. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? Just to be able to sit and stare, and to see that which we are staring at is us. That this world of mirrors, in which every apparent opposite is an invitation to awaken to our true nature, is us. So sit in the silence, sit with what you actually really truly are, and just accept who you are. Thank you.